Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond.
Hello. Good afternoon, viewers, our viewers on the Women's Voice for today. My name is Bagonza Rebecca, your host for today. For those who've been here for several times, thank you for keeping in touch with us. And for those ones that are setting in for the first time, we are glad we are happy and we are indeed grateful. You're most welcome on our show. This is a show called The Women's Voice.
Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond. Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond.
Hello.
Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond.
Good afternoon, viewers. This is the Women's Voice, a platform where we happen to share pertinent issues affecting women in Uganda and all over the world concerning our well-being, not forgetting the young girls and women at large. My name is Bagoza Rebecca, your host for today. For those who are joining us for the first time, you're most welcome. For those who've been here before, thank you for keeping in contact. You're welcome. Today I present to you our expert, the host. My vista for today is called Mr. Nyombi Peter. Nyombi Peter happens to be the program manager of Uganda Mental Health Fellowship at Atane Kontola. Uganda Mental Fellowship at Atane Kontola is our guest today and an expert in issues to do with mental health. When we talk about mental health, several people wonder what is mental health and what exactly does it mean. I don't need to go in the details without introducing to you our guest for today. Mr. Nyombi Peter, you're welcome. Please, may you introduce yourself to our viewers? Please feel welcome.
As Madam Rebecca has already introduced, I'm a professional in mental health. I'm a psychologist by profession, and specifically dealing in mental health. I work with the Uganda Mental Health Fellowship at Anekontola as a programs manager, and basically it's all about humanity and mental health. So in each and everything that we always do, we do much about mental health. And I'm very glad to be here today to have some moment to share about mental health. Yes.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bwana Peter.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, we brought in the right person. I think you are in the best place and you are
Right.
the best person to tell us more about mental health. So
Mm.
if I may ask Mr. Nyombi, we've
Yes.
been hearing about mental health. Several people talk about mental health, mental health, mental health. Some people abbreviate it as when they see someone with a mental disorder, they nickname them as mentors. Some local word to mean mental disturbance. So maybe today we have the chance and the opportunity to have an expert who can explain the depth, mental health in depth, so that we can get to know what it is exactly and what it means. So, Mr. Nyombi Peter, over to you. May we get to know what mental health is? Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Rebecca. Mental health, first of all, the way you brought it very well, that people, when they see someone with a mental disorder, understand they always abbreviate it to be mental. And the world has really gotten it that when someone says that person is mental, definitely someone realizes that person has gotten a mental disorder. However, mental health does not mean mental disorder. And in most cases, that's where sometimes we may not really understand it. So, what is mental health? Mental health is a state of mind, is a state of mental well being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, that enables people to work productively, that enables people to contribute to the environment where they are. So, when we talk about mental health, we are talking about the ability of an individual to do something right in the rightful sense with a stable emotion that can enable them to fulfill what they are meant to do. So, in most cases, when we talk about mental health, we talk about someone's thinking, someone's reasoning, but it goes beyond that. It goes to interpersonal relationship. How do we behave with others? How do we talk to others? And how do we receive information from others? So in this case, mental health can help us to achieve what we are supposed to do, make right decisions, and in most cases, also receive feedback in a positively judgmental way. So when we talk about mental health in this case, we talk so much about how we use our mind, how we use our brains, how we use our emotions. In most cases, oftentimes, people try sometimes ignore many things about mental health. For us, we always do believe that mental health is to that particular person that is mentally devastated. However, mental health does not start from there. Mental health starts from we coordinating our own life. A point in case, when you do something right in your own normal senses, we can say that you are in the right state of mind to do something. So that means that when you talk about mental health can be categorized into positive mental health, and then it can also be categorized as negative mental health. So in this case, what can we think about positive mental health? Positive mental health is a state of mind that can enable an individual to do something in the right way, or to do something in the way that is expected of them, either by society or by an individual. Meaning that when you do something in your right sense of mind, we'll say that that person is working in a state of positive mental health. But on the other hand, mental health can as well be negative, in a sense that someone can develop a mental impairment resulting from a considerable distress, emotional disturbances. Sometimes we talk about anxiety and stress. And from there, then, it can even go beyond to the complex conditions that make someone to develop what we call a mental disorder. So right from the beginning, we may not really understand that someone has a mental health challenge, not until someone is hospitalized or is taken to a rehabilitation center. But the reality is that mental starts right from the smallest thing that we can think about. For example, when we talk about stress, very many people think that stress is a normal idea to follow. We will say someone finds it's like, I'm stressed, and they feel it so fine, they feel it is normal. We do believe that in mental health, there is what we call normal stress. But when stress goes beyond what is expected, then it becomes abnormal. And for that reason, that individual is likely to have what we call a mental health problem. In psychiatry, we talk about mental illness to mean that someone has gotten a problem, a dysfunction that coordinates between someone's brains and then someone's behavior. So in this case, we do believe that an individual who has gotten a mental illness is specifically because there is that uncoordinated relationship between the mind, the brains, and how they behave. So when you talk about mental health in this case, we don't only talk about psychological challenges or mental illness, but you talk about both positive and negative. Positive mental health is not so much given much attention because we believe that positive mental health is normal. That's why all professionals put much emphasis onto the negative mental health, because we believe that's where the problem is. It's just like in the normal life. When everything is going on well, we take it to be normal. We may not really put much time to consider it. It is not until things go wrong that's when we believe that, oh, I think there is something to intervene. So it's the same when we talk about mental health. The question is, what makes people believe that mental health is a serious concern? The reality is, when your mental health is not in the right state, you cannot do anything, you cannot work out, you cannot reach any result whatsoever. So in this case, it means there is need to have much intervention to ensure that someone's mental health is purely set, and definitely it works out. So generally, this is what we call mental health. But mental health, as we were saying, that mental health has gotten both the positive and the negative bit of it. So in our life, there is what we call a comparison between the two levels of mental health. There is the first level of mental health, that is the positive, and then there is another one that is the negative. And when we are measuring mental health, we put it on, let's say, some sort of like a continuum, whereby we know that there is mild, there is moderate and compound. So this idea runs in both. When we talk about positive mental health, we can talk about positive mental health in the 3 stages: the mild, the moderate, and compound, or what we could say it is stable. Still, when it comes to negative mental health, still we also measure it into the same stages. There is mild, there is moderate, and there is compound. So, but when you look at it, one has gotten a correlation to the other. A point in case, when you have a mild positive mental health, the implication is that still you can be rated at a compound negative mental health. The implication in here is that your mental health is not in the right state. Definitely, you exhibit more of the signs of mental illness compared to the normal way things would be done. The same goes to when we talk about moderate mental health. When someone is operating at a moderate stage or at a rate that is moderate, it means that your mental state is divided into 2. The first part is directly into the positivity, and then the other part is into the negativity. And then when we say that someone's mental health positively is at a compound stage, or what we call stable mind, we believe that that individual can comfortably do each and everything. And for that reason, the point of negativity is minimal. That's why we would rate that at the mild stage. So meaning that in each and everything that we do, we may not really even know at which stage our state of mind is. Sometimes it could be that it's at a given stage that we do not know. So basically, that is how we always rate when it comes to mental health. But if I were to stick to one idea that is commonly a major concern, is about illness, what we call mental illness. Now that we have known about mental health, we know that there is a positive side of mental health. There is also a negative side that is called mental illness. Mental illness starts just like the way anything small would start. Simple stressors, simple anxiety, maybe a few fatigues here and there. Before you know it, it affects your interaction with the society, with the environment. Before you know it, it affects your interpersonal relationship with other members. Before you know it, you fail to understand things the way they are supposed to know. And that's when we believe that someone now is coming to a mental problem. But realistically, this situation is only exhibiting at this particular time, but it could have gotten the onset from way back without people knowing. So mental illness, or what we call mental disorders, and sometimes most especially when it comes to the world of human rights and dignity, we call it psychosocial disability. We realize that a mental illness becomes a disability in a sense. Number one, it can become an illness that can be treatable. But again, on the other hand, it reaches a moment that it becomes a disability. Why? It affects someone's mobility, it affects someone's activity, it affects someone's productivity. And for that reason, that particular person becomes impaired. So for that reason, we always categorize that, yes, mental illness can in some other way be called a psychosocial disability, or it can be also be called a mental disorder. Definitely, when you talk about a mental disorder, it's a dysphoria. It's an abnormality that comes right from the brain, goes into someone's behavior, and definitely it affects the normal life. So in most cases, we know of the critical senses of mental health. And in this, we have quite a number of categories of mental disorders. Let's talk about mental disorders. There are quite very many mental disorders. When you try to look at the standardized international research findings, for example, the categorizations by the definitions by the diagnostic statistics.
Excuse me, Bwana Nyombi.
Yes,
Excuse me,
yes,
Bwana Nyombi.
yes.
Yeah, you're taking us so fast. But something I
Oh,
needed to know before you even get there
all right, please.
is I have a simple, yeah, I have a simple question about should we take it that okay, what I've realized, what I've known out of your discussion, it is so enriching, but
Right.
and I know this affects the way we reason, the way we think, the way we make our decisions. Is this
Yes.
what causes some of us to regret in some of the decisions that we take? Because sometimes you take a decision when you're not in your rightful mind. Then after some time you regret. So should we take it that it is linked to mental health, to these such disorders?
Yes. When you sometimes when someone does like when you're reacting onto a given situation, what comes to the mind is that you're doing something, but this thing that you're doing either has gotten you by surprise or it has gotten you when your state of mind is not in position of controlling it. So in most cases, what happens with humanity, God created us with an instinct of fight and flight. Sometimes it is a reflexive instinct that sometimes you do something just because you are now compelled to do it by the state of mind that you are in. So in this case, it is very right that sometimes we react and our reaction can be regrettable, specifically because the state of our mind by the time we came in was not in the proper way to manage such a situation. I'll give an example. Sometimes, let's say someone has been at the place of work and for some reason, they are either disciplined for any occurrence that maybe they are not aware of. The fact that this news is coming to them by surprise, their reactions might be difficult. You realize someone getting annoyed, you realize someone maybe reaching an extent of being violent and maybe beating up someone. When they come into their rightful senses, they realize that whatever they did was not really called for. So in this case, yes, someone's mental health is at stake, and definitely it affects their way of behavior.
All right. Thank you so much, Bwana Nyombi. Yeah, so
Yes.
in the same manner, I've been some little information I have about the link between the different stages of human development and
Yes.
the level the level of risk that that are involved in different stages of human development, because we realize that we've got different stages of human development. For example, we've
Yes.
got early childhood stage, adolescence, aging, there is prenatal, there is middle age, there is puberty. So maybe since you are an expert, can we get to know which developmental stages, which human development stages are um, more attached to risks of mental health? Because I realize not all stages that are affected deeply by mental health, but there
Okay.
are some stages where the risk
Mm,
is too much, is high.
mm, mm.
Yeah, so may you please discuss for us maybe some of these stages?
Okay. Honestly, uh, each and every stage of development, someone can have a problem with their mental state. However, There are particular stages that we know that have gotten this high risk of developing these challenges. The first of all is the early childhood stage. You know, when someone is growing up, their brains get started to learn very many things. And as people grow up, the brains get to be growing as well. So if there is anything that disrupts someone's brain at that early stage, there is a likelihood that that person is at the greatest risk of developing a mental disorder. For example, sometimes when you talk about early childhood, very many people bring it maybe from either birth to infant stage. Others would even think that before even we come to that, even prenatal stage, when someone is still in the womb, there is a high risk of developing a mental challenge, most especially if the pregnant mother, has gotten lots of stress, if a pregnant mother has gotten maybe some sort of accident, or they are victims of violence at a given moment, when the baby is in some other way injured, there is a likelihood that that baby might be born when they have a problem with a mental state. But the most important is so much when someone has grown. In here, we believe that as someone is growing, someone's brain is also growing. So any disruption will always lead to a mental problem. You know, just like the way an individual grows, even our brains grow in the same way, step by step. You learn something from the perception, let's say, from the senses of hearing, the senses of tactile, then you come to the sense of tasting. In most cases, children learn from there as they are still young. So as they grow up, they start now getting to comprehend that, hey, this is sweet and this is not, this is sour. Through testing, they will know that, yes, this is cold environment, this is warm. Now, it means that that is the stage that is so delicate that we need to prevent any damage to reach into someone. If they don't, definitely there is a likelihood that that child will always get these problems. Children fail to coordinate when when you are either sending them, you send them, for example, maybe for a cup. Sometimes a kid might stand and look at you for like 2 minutes. Then they go and bring the cup. So you realize that, yes, there is a that slow process in the mind for this kid to process that, yes, this thing needs to be, I think this is meant to be a cup or something. Sometimes there are some situations whereby a child can be told to bring a cup and they bring a spoon instead, meaning that in their brain, much as they heard that it was a cup, but the brain processed that it should be a spoon. So in most cases, early childhood becomes so much at risk. The other second stage is adolescence. Adolescence is at risk, but not so much. Why? Because an individual has already gone through the childhood stage. But where it becomes risky is that this individual reaches a stage of sexual hyperactivity, being inquisitive, being adventurous in quite a number of things. And then the greatest challenge that comes in here, adolescence tries to differentiate what we call gender role identity. Now, in this case, this is where people find lots of challenges. How can a girl believe that she's no longer a baby, but she's growing up? What are the questions that are being asked about her biological system? How does she behave with others? So there is a lot of questions being asked around this stage. And again, the unfortunate bit of it is that they are not answered. So this stage also becomes risky in the way that an individual is taking on each and everything almost independently. Then the other risky area is old age. Sometimes old age is risky. The fact that, yes, when someone is growing up, there is that degeneration when it comes to the physical fitness. By age, someone has succumbed to quite a number of diseases. And then, so because of that, their state of mind gets weak. And for that reason, there is a likelihood that that individual can develop a mental illness. So all stages could be at risk, but mostly early childhood is more risky compared to other stages of development.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bwana Peter. That is so nice, awesome. So briefly, can we maybe look at the categories, some of the categories of mental illnesses? Because yeah, we've had the broad definition and so on about mental illnesses. Does it have different categories, or we generalize it mental illness as mental illness?
Actually, mental illness, yes, there is that general categorization that, yes, yeah, this is mental illness. But again, mental illness is different. Sometimes for us in society, we see people and we call them mental, just the way we were trying to bring it up in the morning. I mean, at the beginning of the show, that yes, mental. But I mean, there is quite a lot of categorizations of mental illness. Sometimes we may not really come and discuss all of them. But maybe to mention a few, there is quite a number of mental illnesses. Number one, we can talk about simple one. First of all, depression. Individuals suffer from depression, and sometimes we feel it is something simple. But honestly, depression is one of the silent killers of humanity. Depression comes in a way that someone reaches a moment whereby they lose hope. They do not know what to do. And for that reason, they feel they are helpless. They feel no one is there to help them. So depression comes in, and when someone suffers from depression, they start develop particular tendencies. And the most common tendency for depression is suicidal tendencies. Very many people who are depressed, in most cases, they are thinking of ending their life. In fact, if you are to be realizing all the cases that we realize about suicide, the suicidal notes that they always leave behind, they realize that someone has reached a moment that they can't do anything whatsoever but to leave this world. This brain damage comes in, and when it comes in, it makes an individual believe that they can't do anything on this planet Earth. So there is that major category, and very many people get depressed. However, maybe let me make this a little clear. There is sometimes in mental health there is what we call uh, normal depression. Yes, there is something that has happened. You feel you're depressed. Yes, that is true. But again, this depression must be having a time limit. When it goes beyond that, then definitely it becomes an illness. Number two, we can talk about simple categories. Dementia is one other idea. Dementia is a mental problem where an individual involuntarily starts to forget. You do not know how you lose your memory. You realize that you can be holding a cup, and at the same time, you're looking for the same cup that you're holding. You've forgotten that you are holding a cup. You can place something somewhere, and all of a sudden, you forget about that. Forgetting is normal. But when it becomes abnormal, then it becomes a mental problem. You cannot be keeping to forget each and every time, and forgetting for sometimes forgetting is not even for a long time, because we do believe that if an occurrence takes long, definitely someone normally can forget. But there is a situation whereby something has happened hardly 2 minutes back, but again an individual has forgotten. So there is that kind of a problem. The other idea that we can talk about is, let's talk about epilepsy. Society and the world has gotten a lot of myths about epilepsy. Others believe it is out of witchcraft. And others believe it is a contagious disease. But the reality is that epilepsy is a dysfunction, a mental dysfunction, whereby an individual's brain switches off instantly, and in most cases, they lose out onto perception or understanding the entire environment. Realistically, epilepsy is not contagious, like the way very many people used to believe, or even some other people still believe so. That's why when someone gets that faith about epilepsy, someone has fallen down and the rest, they are all shaking and the rest. Instead of people coming to help them, they run away. But again, when you run away, honestly, you are only creating time for this problem to even reach an extent of killing this person. These people need to be helped to calm down. And you realize that after some time, an individual gets back to normal. So, epilepsy has gotten one idea, that sometimes it has gotten even a sequence. This is where people used to have a feeling that whenever a moon shows up like this, then someone epileptic will go into that crisis. But it's just because the brain has gotten a sequence that within a given period of time, the brain is worked out, it fails, and for that reason, an individual falls down and fails to coordinate by the brain. So that is another category of mental health. Maybe in the interest of time, we can discuss like around 2 more. One is what we call schizophrenia. Schizophrenic disorder is a mental problem that affects an individual. And in this, an individual develops symptoms of what we call delusions and hallucinations. Delusions are false beliefs. Someone starts developing particular false beliefs. For example, they look at someone and they develop a feeling that that person is coming to harm them. They look at an individual and they believe that that person has come to destroy them. So, and other times they believe that maybe the rest of the people are the ones that do not understand, and he's the only one who understands. So that is schizophrenia. The other symptom of hallucinations is that these people start to get what we call false perceptions. False perceptions, they start understanding things for them what they believe that they do understand, and yet they are not there. For example, someone might look at a situation and then they say that their mother, for example, their late mother has come and they are conversing. And it's like, yes, mommy, you're most welcome. They're having this particular talk. For him or her is seeing someone there. And yet there isn't anyone at all. So sometimes this idea goes into what we call, some other people really have a different perception about it. Those who believe in spiritualism will take that into spiritualism. Someone is talking to ghosts, someone is talking to angels, and for that reason, they have interventions. But the reality is, this individual has gotten a problem in their brains. And indeed, they need a lot of intervention. So schizophrenia has gotten that idea. And in most cases, these people get to be violent at times, they become aggressive, specifically because of the false beliefs that they have. When they believe that you are coming to harm them, they harm you before you do so. So generally, that is what we call schizophrenia. And maybe lastly, we can talk about what we call a bipolar affective disorder. Bipolar affective disorder is also another category of mental health. And this is so much about an individual's mood. With bipolar, an individual has gotten two episodes. There is what we call the active episode, and there is what we call the passive episode. In the active episode, someone is so hyper. They can move from one place to another. They can, do a lot of work. They can talk a lot. They can do a lot of uncoordinated behavior. They are not resting at all. Sometimes an individual reaches a moment that they can't sleep at all. They are ever active. But again, on the other hand, when it comes to the passive mode, an individual is literally withdrawn from the entire world. They are ever quiet, withdrawn. They love to be alone, and that is it. But within this, an individual cannot think straight, cannot work straight, but they are only doing whatever comes to their mind at that particular time. Members of that suffer from bipolar disorders, they have that tendency of moving up and down. They pick up each and everything. I mean, it becomes so much. And if you are not aware of them, they even reach a moment of getting violent as well. So that is what we call bipolar disorders. So generally, there are quite many categories, but all of them have gotten, most of the symptoms are so much about how they interpret the world at all.
Wow, interesting. I don't know whether our viewers all out there feel the same way I feel. Otherwise, this is so enriching and so interesting. Besides learning, it is also interesting. However, Mr. Nyombi,
Yes.
after you presenting to us the categories of mental disorders, we also realized that there could be some determinants of mental disorders. Could we
Yes.
briefly discuss some of these so that our viewers out there can maybe get to know whatever is happening around within the environment, so that they can be in position to tell whichever situation comes around and how they can interpret such a situation. So some of the determinants of mental disorders briefly, so that shortly after we can conclude.
Okay, thanks very much. They are just like the way there are very many categories of disorders, there are very many determinants of mental disorders as well. We may not really have all of them, but maybe to have a few. The first determinant of a mental disorder can be from, let's say, for example, from parenting. Early childhood punishment is one great determinant of mental disorders. When a child is ever punished, sometimes punishment may not really be understood as punishment, but instead it cripples someone's brain. Punishment is good. And we always say that punishment is or should always be sufficient when it comes to behavior change. But there are situations whereby a parent, because of maybe they are disturbed or something, they beat up a kid, and a kid does not even realize why they are beating them. They are beating them because they have done something wrong. But at the end of it all, this kid will only know that people are there to hate her or him, and not necessarily disciplining them. So these early childhood punishments will always come into the brain of an individual, and it can lead to a mental disorder. The other factor that we can talk about is the psychological factor. Psychological factor, in this sense, we are talking about the emotions. Sometimes when an individual is emotionally weak, there is a likelihood that that person can develop a mental problem. For example, you cannot come to tell them that your father has died. Definitely, they lose out automatically. So emotional instability is one great cause. When someone loses a job, they can run into mental problems. So anything that affects an individual's emotions can lead to a mental health problem. You've realized quite a number of challenges whereby people come up and they say, you know what, for me, I had a boyfriend, he chucked me, I had a girlfriend, we separated, and because of that, someone runs crazy, and before you know it, they are now in medication specifically because their emotions could not afford to handle such a situation. We have gotten biological factors or what we call genetics. Sometimes these kind of mental problems are genetical. And when you realize sometimes when someone has gotten a mental problem, professionals come down into the life history. And before you come to know it, you realize that in their family, there is that other trail of mental disturbances. So it means that as someone is growing up, genetically, there could be that cross-generational factor that leads to mental problems. The other aspect would be physiological factors. Physiology, in a sense, the state of the body, how well your body is. When your body is well, you can have a well mental health. But most of other diseases can lead to mental problems. I'll give an example. Our members that suffer from HIV/AIDS, sometimes the virus comes in and damages their brain, and they develop what we call HIV psychosis. You realize that now someone gets into that stage of mental disability, specifically because of the physiological setup. The other factors that we can talk about are the general factors, social factors. In here, we can talk about gender-related factors that may include sexual and gender-based violence. We can talk about domestic-related violence and the rest. So all that can lead to mental problems.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bwana Nyombi Peter. I don't know. Yeah, there is a lot to learn in here. You've said lots of issues. We incidentally we are caught up by time, but
Sure.
in a nutshell, maybe for me, I've learned several things, several issues out of your discussion. It has been so nice, wonderful, enriching. Yeah, specifically about the myth and misconceptions around the categories of mental disorders, because you've had some of us, when we get across such cases, there are some myths and misconceptions that we attach. Yeah, especially epilepsy. I'm getting to learn something very, very different and very new. So thank you so much, Mr. Nyom Peter. So I think we've got a lot to discuss
Sure.
about mental health. And
Sure.
this takes me to another level of asking you or requesting you, like, why can't we come back for another time and maybe we talk about how to deal with mental health,
Sure.
who is prone to mental disorders, and
Sure.
there's several other issues around mental health. I would
Sure.
think, yeah. So can we can we can you make a closing remark so that we can leave the platform?
Okay.
I know the viewers out there must be still interested in you, but we are caught up by time. So can we conclude and make a closing remarks? And we
Okay, thanks very much, Rebecca. Number one, for hosting me, bringing me in here. And then thanks very much for the viewers, whoever has been on. And yes, the reality is that we cannot discuss mental health in this short period and we get done. But we can have more time and then we shall discuss it in details. Conclusively, I would say that mental health is a problem that any other person can have. No one is a candidate to mental health, but everyone is a candidate to mental health. That is the bad news. But the good news is that mental health is treatable, and in most cases, we always call it management. We can manage mental health. We can treat it. Some people get cured, others may not, but they can still be under medication and maybe psychotherapy, and then they can manage this. So, as we started from the beginning, we said that it can start from something small. So, don't look at something small about your mental state and you keep quiet. Kindly, where it requires to go and check up, please go check up, because before you know it, it can become into a complex idea. When you are making preparations, or when you're protecting your physical health, please, there is need to have also to prepare for mental health. That's why we say that in each and everything we do, health is no health without mental health. So whatever you do, think about your health, but think more about your mental health. Thanks very much, and I wish you the best of the rest of the time. I hope we shall get more time and we discuss more. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Bwana Nyompita, for giving us your precious time. What else can I say more than this? Bearing in mind that all of us are candidates to mental health disorders, I would just like to caution our viewers out there that let us take precautions so that we take care of our mental health. We take good care of our mental health. Not only considering other things, but mental health also matters, and we need to take care. We need to take good care of our mental health. Thank you so much, viewers, and thank you so much, Bwana Nyombi Peter. Hope to see you another time. So, bye bye.
Welcome to the Women's Voice, a platform for learning, advocacy, and awareness on issues affecting women of Uganda and beyond.